The environmental disaster taking place in Ohio from a Norfolk Southern derailed train should outrage both sides of the political aisle. After the smoke clears, investigations will take place and most likely will show that there is plenty of blame to be shared, including all levels of government and both political parties. But at the moment, the complete lack of any significant response by the Biden administration is appalling and begs the question of why an administration that is hostile to the free market and supports extreme measures to fight climate change is missing in action. Could it be that some of the largest shareholders of the responsible railroad, Norfolk Southern Corporation, are tied to PACs and affiliates that helped fund the 2020 election of the Biden administration? If true, then isn't it reasonable to conclude that by such donations, these shareholders, through their PACs and affiliates, support the Biden administration? Well. According to various sources, the top shareholders in Norfolk Southern Corporation are the Vanguard Group and subsidiaries of BlackRock and JP Morgan. Specifically, as of this week, CNNMoney.com lists the Vanguard Group as the top shareholder with 7.68%. BlackRock Fund Advisors and JP Morgan Investment Management tie at 4.54% as other top investors. As of December 31, 2022, Norfolk Southern's own website lists Vanguard, BlackRock Institutional Trust Company, and JP Morgan Asset Management as top shareholders. Interestingly and very tellingly, the Vanguard Group, JP Morgan Investment, and BlackRock all gave significant sums of money to the Biden 2020 presidential campaign through their PACs and affiliates. Open Secrets confirms this statement. The Vanguard Group, through its affiliates and PACs, contributed 62.83% to the federal Democrat candidates during the 2020 election cycle, and only 37.17% to all federal Republican candidates. It gave a total of $96,988 to Biden's 2020 presidential campaign, and just $7,547 to Trump's 2020 presidential campaign. Under JP Morgan Chase, Open Secrets reports that its affiliates and PACs contributed a total of $1,038,917 to Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. Donations to President Trump's 2020 campaign totaled a whopping $236,111. JP Morgan did contribute to both parties, with the Democrats reaping the most. Under all federal candidates, JP Morgan and affiliates gave 74.83% to Democrats and only 25.17% to Republicans. Also, keep in mind that during the 2022 campaign cycle, JP Morgan refused to fund any Republican congressional candidates who objected to the 2020 electoral votes. Then there is BlackRock, whose founder and CEO Larry Fink is a committed and outspoken Democrat. Several news outlets did expose the close relationship that BlackRock has and had with prominent Democrats, including Obama and Hillary Clinton, and now, of course, Joe Beijing Biden. According to Open Secrets, during the 2020 election cycle, BlackRock, through its PACs and affiliates, gave to all federal Democrat candidates a total of 80.64% and only 19.36% to all federal Republican candidates. Now, regarding Biden, it gave $182,768 to the Biden 2020 presidential campaign. Just $6,170 was contributed to Trump's 2020 presidential campaign. Following the 2020 election, Biden put Brian Deese, a BlackRock investment executive, to serve as the director of the National Economic Council. Coincidentally, of course, it was confirmed on February 2nd of 2023, one day before the rail accident, that Brian Deese had vacated his position with the Biden administration. Biden also picked Adewale Adeyemo, I'm sure I butchered that, chief of staff to BlackRock's chief executive, to be the deputy secretary of the Treasury Department. Furthermore, Michael Pyle, who was the global chief investment strategist at BlackRock, was picked to be Vice President Kamala Harris's chief economic advisor. Now, according to a Bloomberg article from August 11, 2022, The Biden administration also hired Eric Van Nostrand, a BlackRock managing director of research for sustainable investments and multi-asset strategies, to join the Treasury Department as a senior advisor on economic issues related to Russia and Ukraine, because of course he did. But there are also plenty of government officials who have gone to work over at BlackRock. This is really starting to sound like the whole Twitter FBI situation now, isn't it? Two noteworthy people include Dahlia Blass, who was with the SEC and went to BlackRock's External Affairs, and Thomas Donnellan, who was a national security advisor to Obama and went on to be chairman of BlackRock's research business. Interestingly, on January 31st of 2023, it was reported that BlackRock increased its ownership in Mount Rose Environmental Group through a disclosure to the SEC, showing it now owns 7.2% of the company. So what does Mount Rose Environmental Group do? Well, according to their website, from testing to remediation to proactive interventions, Mount Rose provides comprehensive, environmentally focused solutions that combine the consistency of a national presence with deep local experience and regulatory insight. So what does that entail exactly? Well, MEG does testing and lab services, soil and groundwater remediation, water treatment, and regulatory consulting, to name just a few things. Again, from MEG's website, under soil and groundwater remediation, it states, quote, "Our highly trained and experienced engineers and scientists, environmental and remediation specialists, geologists, hydrogeologists, biologists, and environmental compliance specialists work with both public and private sector clients, delivering turnkey solutions for large and small-scale investigations and remediations of contaminated sites." Now, I wouldn't think it would be any giant leap of conspiracy to think that these will probably be some of the services required by the people affected by this environmental disaster. Now finally, Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is on record supporting efforts to stop so-called climate change. The New York Times reports that Fink is using his firm's influence to pressure companies to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So given the toxic chemicals released by this train derailment, are Fink and his company prepared to abide by the same standards that he advocates? Then again, Fink claims that support of climate change policies was about profits. Well, folks, you can go ahead and color me curious that his company purchased more stocks in MEG right before a railroad in which his company as a large stock owner was involved in an environmental disaster of unimaginable proportions. These facts quite obviously point towards a very cozy relationship Joe Biden has with some of the major shareholders of Norfolk Southern. Therefore, it's not a very big leap at all to suppose why the administration has been pretty much AWOL in this whole mess. Apparently, folks, it's not just the Chinese that might own part of Joe Biden's ass. I'm sure there'll be much more as this story progresses. Most of this came by way of the American Thinker. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.